Welcome to the Numbers Game. I'm Cynthia Frelund. It's week 9, and we have 14 more NFL games to break down based on key contextual stats, driving forecasted scores, and player projections. Before we jump into these games, I want to thank you for your suggestions and help shaping what figures to be an interesting trade deadline extra show. We're going to do 30 minutes, likely with a guest. And even if there aren't any more additional trades, there's still plenty to break down from what we've already seen. But keep your ideas and questions coming. As a reminder, the trade deadline is Tuesday, November 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm not sure anyone has anything else to do that day. As always, thank you for coming to hang out. It means a lot to me that you're choosing to spend some of your time and energy with me here on our show. In week 8, my model's results were 12-4 straight up, 10-6 against the spread, and 9-7 on totals, bringing my season win totals to 65.9% straight up, 53.3 against the spread, and 52% on totals. Since we already covered the Texans at Jets in the TNF primer, let's start with one of the bigger surprise wins from week 8, and that's the team who beat those Jets, the Patriots. This week, they head to Nashville for a matchup with the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is a 3.5-point favorite in a game where 38 points is the total. I bring up total game points here because depending on who's playing, the score could be quite different. New England's scoring note is that in Drake May's 3 starts, the Patriots have averaged 20.7 points per game, compared to 12.4 in weeks 1 through 5 with Jacoby Brissett as the starter. The Titans' totals change considerably too, depending on the quarterback. With Will Levis as a starter, they averaged 19.2 points per game, and with Mason Rudolph, they were just 12, but that was only in 2 games. As of right now, Drake May is still in the concussion protocol, but reports indicate that he has a shot to play. Coverage coming out of Titans camp points to Coach Callahan having optimism that Will Levis will play, but again, nothing is confirmed. Bottom line here is that the Patriots offense has allowed the highest pressure rate at about 45%, along with the most quick pressures this season on their quarterback at 74. The Titans defense determines this one for me. Not only are they the league's number 1 total defense, but they're one of just 4 teams with greater than 60% success rates when defending both the pass and the run per next-gen stats. As of right now, I've modeled this game with Levis playing but at 75% capacity and Drake May in for New England. The score in that case is 22-18 Tennessee. However, this one can very well be seen as the race to score 20 points. I've modeled it with all quarterback options and Tennessee wins in each scenario. However, the score does change. This game ranks 10th of the 15 games on the slate in terms of confidence. Rounding out the AFC East, the Dolphins head to Orchard Park to take on the Bills in a game where Buffalo is a 6-point favorite. From weeks 3 to 7, Miami's defense was a top 8 unit, holding opponents under 300 total yards per game, with only about 162 of those coming through the air, and opponents could only convert 26.5% of their third downs. Getting Tua back last week got them to a season-high 27 points on offense, but the defense didn't hold up their end of the bargain, especially on third down, where they allowed Arizona to convert on 53.8% of their third down attempts. If the Dolphins are going to get their first win at New Era in 9 tries, it will likely come with a very successful day for Devin Achane, who's averaged 115.3 scrimmage yards, 6.3 yards per rush, and has 4 touchdowns in 3 games against the Bills. However, part of what will be so key is that the quick game for Tua will be able to function more effectively, which is where Tua earned the most EPA last season by a wide margin. The Bills' defense has held opponents to the lowest completion percentage and just 5 yards per attempt on quick downfield passes this season. That's 10th fewest in the league. In other words, Achane would be a catalyst because the threat of his rushes or shorter passes would help create space for other receivers in that quick downfield phase of the game. Speaking of the Bills defense, who gets Von Miller back this week, if they're going to extend their winning streak over the Dolphins to 13 of the last 14 total contests, one area that will be important is quick pressures on Tua. Miami's quarterbacks have been pretty well protected, experiencing the 7th lowest pressure rate this season. But Gregory Rousseau has generated a team-high 32 pressures and is tied for 10th most by any defender in the NFL this season. What matters in this one is how well he's been able to time his jump off the snap. He has a 0.76 second get-off time. That is 8th quickest in the league, which has resulted in Rousseau being tied for the 4th most quick pressures in the entire NFL. Bottom line, I forecast a sizable win for the Bills, 28-19. One thing to watch for is an uptick in play-action passing. Josh Allen has a league-topping .57 EPA per dropback with play-action this season, but the Bills only use it at the 4th lowest rate. However, the Dolphins have struggled to defend it, allowing the ninth most EPA per dropback at 0.22. This game ranks number 2 in confidence. Fun fact, Josh Allen averages 318.6 offensive yards per game in regular season career games against Miami. That is the most by any player with 10 or more starts versus a single opponent since starts were first tracked in 1950. Spoiler alert here, he actually goes under those super high numbers in the vast majority of my simulations. Speaking of a lot of yards, in this case passing yards, Justin Herbert needs just one more game with at least 300 yards to tie Jameis Winston at 27 such games, ranking third all time in a player's first 5 seasons behind only Patrick Mahomes and Kurt Warner. Kind of cool that it could happen for Herbo against Jameis this weekend in Cleveland, where the Chargers are 2-point road favorites. Justin Herbert leads the league in downfield passing yards since week 6 with 513 yards. But he has a tough matchup to make it happen in this one, though, as he's been pressured at the 9th highest rate, and of the 30 qualified quarterbacks, meaning the ones who've taken enough snaps for it to be relevant, he has next-gen stats' lowest passing success rate when pressured. The Browns have gotten pressure on opposing quarterbacks at the 5th highest rate and have the 7th highest sack rate. Cleveland earned a season-high 29 points last week in their win in Baltimore, but this week also forecast to be a tough one for Jameis and crew. The Chargers allow the fewest points per game at just 13. They've also kept opponents out of the red zone most of any team. They have just 12 red zone drives. The next closest defense has allowed 17. They're also 4th best at drives that do go into the red area, and they only average allowing 15.9 first downs per game. That is also tied for fewest. Bottom line, in this matchup, the volatility of Jameis Winston's game, along with Nick Chubb's consistent ability to earn yards, especially ones after contact, gives the Browns the slight edge. My final score is Browns upset the Chargers 21-20. However, Jameis Winston's volatility is also part of what drives this game to be ranked 14th of 15 or second lowest in confidence. If the Browns win, it would be their second win in as many weeks after topping the Ravens in week 8. The biggest forecasted eat your vegetable game this week is also those AFC North Ravens, who are hosting an AFC West team, the Broncos, as 9.5-point home favorites. The Broncos have blitzed at the highest rate in the league, 43.4% of opponent dropbacks. It's worth saying again that in their case, it is not because they're trying to manufacture pressure. Want some evidence? Oh, okay, here it is. When they only rush 4, they have the second best pressure rate at about 38%. They blitz because they get to. They trust their secondary. Lamar Jackson is actually tied for the most yards when blitzed at 805, and he has the most completions with 58. He also has next-gen stats' highest success rate, but not all blitzes are created equal. The Ravens' defense has generated pressure at the 8th lowest rate, but when they get pressure, it turns into a sack at the 6th highest rate, which is how they've gotten to 23 sacks, the 4th most through 8 weeks. The Broncos offense has allowed the lowest sack rate this season, which is part of how Bo Nix has ended up leading all rookies in total touchdowns with 12. Bottom line, I have the Ravens winning 27-19, which means the Broncos keep it closer than 9.5 points. The Ravens offense leads the NFL with 41 plays of 20-plus yards this season, but Baltimore's defense has also allowed the most plays of 20-plus yards, so there are some points to be had. Baltimore winning ranks 5th in confidence. Fun fact, Bo Nix has already earned the most wins by any rookie quarterback in Denver history with 5. Since the actual halfway mark of the season happens during games this week, I have a little bit of an ask for you for next week's show. I love how interactive the show has become, so we are going to take it one step further. Do you remember superlatives in school, like most likely to succeed, which I'm sure all of you got? Those are the things we're going to do for players for the first half of the season. It could be players, it could be teams. Get creative with it. What you have to do is take a stat, name the superlative, and then give me a sentence or 10 to 15 seconds of video if you're feeling brave. Next week, I'll read them. I'll play your videos. However you send them to me, that's what we'll do. You can put them in the comments or send an email to prettygooddraftgame@gmail.com or send it to me on X. Here are my 2 submissions. Number 1, in a nod to Fantasy Live with the name, the cardio king of the first half of the season is Darnell Mooney, who's traveled 9,429 yards this season, the most of any offensive player. Number 2, Mr. Rare Air. Calvin Ridley leads the NFL with 561 air yards on incomplete targets. No other player has even 500 such yards this season. Okay, back to the show. which is the last AFC West and NFC North matchup. We have so many of those this week. Against the Chiefs last week, quarterback Gardner Minshew completed 80% of his 30 passing attempts for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns, which was good for a 117.9 overall passer rating. However, intermediate passes were where he found the most success. He went 5 of 6 for 68 yards and both of those touchdowns. He also had a 153.5 passer rating on 10 to 19 air yard throws. He was pretty good, even though it was a small sample size. As for the matchup, the Bengals defense has allowed the 4th highest completion percentage on intermediate passes. I feel like I never get to talk about Jamar Chase because he doesn't really qualify for underrated touchdown score lists, and he's one of my favorite players in the league. So I'm taking that opportunity now. Jamar Chase leads the NFL in receiving yards with 674, receiving yards over expected with 251, and yards after the catch over expected at 140 this season. He also happens to be the only player with more than 200 receiving yards over expected. At 251 is certainly more than 200. Bottom line, Joe Burrow has been kept clean at the 6th best rate, which helps drive his top 5 passer rating this season, and the Raiders have the 9th lowest pressure rate. The Raiders offense also has 1 or more giveaways in every game this season. They have 17 of them total. That paces the league. I have the Bengals winning 27-19, and this ranks 4th highest in confidence on the 15 games this week. Fun fact, Joe Burrow is 14-5 in November or later since 2021. Only Patrick Mahomes has a better record. Happy November to the Bengals and Chiefs fans. From the team who ranks 4th in confidence to the one that ranks 3rd, in an NFC South divisional matchup between the Saints and Panthers in Carolina, where the road team is a touchdown favorite. Next Gen Stats shows that Derek Carr is averaging 13 yards per attempt on intermediate passes. That is the most for any quarterback with at least 20 such passing attempts this season. 53% of Chris Olave's receiving yards this season have come on intermediate passes from Derek Carr. And the Panthers are allowing the 2nd most yards per attempt on such passes at 11.7. When there's a kid from Okemos out here doing things, I'm going to talk about them. The Panthers right tackle and I are both from the same small town, Okemos, Michigan, which is just east of East Lansing, and one of us has allowed the 6th lowest pressure rate among right tackles, while the other one just measures such things and talks way too much. Moton will likely match up against Carl Granderson, who has recorded a sub-12 pressure rate, his lowest since 2019. Bottom line, maybe it won't be on Moton's side of the line, but Bryce Young has been sacked 12 times in 3 career games versus the Saints. Saints win this one 24-16, and they are team number 3 of 15 in confidence to win this week. Staying in the NFC South, the 2.5-point favorite Atlanta Falcons play host to the Dallas Cowboys. Every single one of Dak Prescott's league-leading 8 interceptions this season have come on throws past the sticks. However, the Falcons' defense has allowed the 3rd highest completion percentage on such throws. The league average is about 52%, and they allow about 60%. Another thing that could help alleviate the turnover issue is a potential better situation on first down. The Cowboys' offense is tracking at number 32 in success rate on first down, but the Falcons' defense is tracking at a league-high 31.5% missed tackle rate against design runs on first down. For the Falcons, Bijan Robinson has the highest success rate on under center runs this season, with a 5.3 yard average and a touchdown on these types of runs. The Cowboys defense have given up the most touchdowns, 11, and the 2nd highest success rate, about 49%, against under center runs this season. I also think this next-gen play-action note is very interesting, as the Falcons have used it at the lowest rate in the league, but the threat of the run always seems to be present because the passing game has been efficient without play-action. Kirk Cousins is averaging 8.1 passing yards per attempt without play-action this season, the 2nd most in the league. As for the matchup, the Cowboys have allowed 8 passing yards per attempt on plays without play-action, that is the 2nd most. Bottom line, my model has a 28-23 Falcon win forecasted, in large part due to the advantage Atlanta's offense has over Dallas's defense. One example, they have only a 14% quick pressure rate this season. That ranks 21st. They led the league in this metric at 24.2% last season. They also had the 2nd longest average time to pressure at 2.9 seconds. The Falcons winning ranks 9th in confidence. The final game in the Sunday morning window keeps us in the NFC East for a divisional matchup between the Commanders and Giants at MetLife, where the away team is a 3.5-point favorite. The Commanders have the most shotgun rush attempts this season at 166. No other team even has more than 150 of them. But it's not just the volume from the shotgun, it's also the efficiency. Washington has generated 0.17 EPA per carry from the shotgun, that's fifth highest. And the Giants have allowed 2.1 rushing yards over expected per carry against shotgun rush attempts, that is the most in the NFL. Despite missing 2 games, Malik Neighbors leads the Giants with 498 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns, and trails Wan'Dale Robinson by only 2 receptions for the lead. His pace, 7.7 receptions per game, would be the most in a season by a rookie since 1970 and would narrowly edge out Odell Beckham's 7.6, which is the current leader in the clubhouse. Bottom line, Washington wins 27-20. The Giants hold the Commanders under their 29.5 point per game average based on their defensive front that leads the league in sacks with 35. Washington winning ranks 6th in confidence. I have something new for you again this week, a new list that you can use for your own personal crib sheet. It's a list of 3 notes on duos that all relate to action items this week. All I can think of are stepbrother quotes for no good reason, but there's just so much room for activities on this show. Duo number 1, Josh Allen to Khalil Shakir. Allen has completed 36 of 38 passing attempts when targeting Shakir. That's the highest single-season completion percentage by any quarterback-wide receiver duo since 1991 and leads to strong odds of him catching at least 5 passes this week. Duo number 2, Caleb Williams has a 90% completion percentage when targeting Cole Kmet. That's the highest among any quarterback tight end duo this season. Williams to Kmet results are 27 of 30, 303 passing, 3 touchdowns, a 128.2 passer rating, and this week that translates to high odds of Kmet having at least 32 receiving yards against the Cardinals. And duo number 3, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown have connected on 3 deep touchdown passes in just 4 games together this season. That's tied for the most among any duo this season. And the Jags have allowed the 4th highest completion percentage over expected on deep passes. So A.J. Brown to the end zone? Yeah, that occurs in a high number of my simulations. Which brings us to the link, where the Jags come to town and Doug Peterson says he will not be looking at the statue commemorating his Super Bowl win in Philadelphia. I would look. That is very cool. Just saying. Birds are 7.5 point favorites. Trevor Lawrence leads the NFL in yards on deep passes with 498. However, the Jags could be without a number of their main pieces on offense, including rookie Brian Thomas Jr., who's been the recipient of 311 of those deep passing yards, which ranks 2nd most in the NFL. The situation gets even worse when you see that since their Week 5 bye, the Eagles have allowed just 1 deep completion out of 9 attempts. And for the season, they have the 3rd lowest passer rating allowed on these 20-plus air yard attempts. Related, but not quite there yet, don't think I'm not tracking what to say about Cooper DeJean. You know I love defensive backs. When there are at least a few more snaps to make some good analysis on, I will check back. But so far, it is looking good. There are 2 bright spots in the situation for Jalen Hurts. First, one of his strengths figures to be strengthened, as Hurts is 5th best on play action in both completion percentage and passer rating. And the Jags allow the 3rd highest passer rating and 4th best completion percentage on such passes. And second, one of his weaknesses this season figures to be muted, in that Hurts has the 4th worst passer rating versus the blitz, but the Jags blitz at the lowest rate in the league, just 17%. Bottom line, Eagles win 28-19, ranking 1st in confidence. Oh, and Saquon Barkley happens to have the 4th most yards both before and after contact per carry this season. He's accounted for 32.2% of his team's scrimmage yards, which is the highest rate in the league. Philly extends their streak, making it 5 wins in the last 5 matchups with Jacksonville. In 14 of the past 20 matchups between the Rams and Seahawks in Seattle, the 12s have won. This week, the Rams come to town as a 1.5 point favorite. Cooper Kupp has been on the field for about 56% of Matthew Stafford's dropbacks since 2023, and his passer rating is over 20 points higher with Kupp on the field than with him off, 100.9 with him on, versus 79.7 when he's off. The Seahawks defense has the 7th highest pressure rate and the 10th highest sack rate this season. And in part due to injuries along the O-line, along with wide receivers, Matthew Stafford has struggled against pressure. He actually has the 7th lowest EPA per dropback, which would be his career low since we started tracking in 2016 if it holds, but I don't think it holds. Bottom line, Seahawks win at home, upsetting the Rams 24-23. But this is my least confident win on the slate, in part because Seattle's defense has been confusing. They've allowed the most yards per play since week 4 at 6.5, after allowing the fewest yards per play in weeks 1 through 3. However, Geno Smith leads the league, averaging 274.6 yards per game, likely gets DK Metcalf back, and the Rams D is bottom 5 in yards per attempt allowed, yards per completion allowed, and sacks. Rounding out the NFC West, remember San Francisco is on a bye, is the Cardinals playing host to the Bears, who are 1-point road favorites. The Bears' pass defense has allowed a negative .2 EPA per dropback to opposing offenses this season, the second best rate in the NFL. And Kyler Murray has a 1-3 record in games this season where he has a negative EPA per dropback. He is 3-1 in all other games. James Conner has forced a league-high 54 missed tackles this season, and he has 46 rushing yards over expected. That ranks 18th in the NFL. But the Bears have secured over 89% of their tackles this season, the third highest tackle efficiency rate in the league. Bottom line, the Bears get the road win 24-22. But don't be surprised if it comes down to another nail-biter, as the Cardinals have trailed entering the fourth quarter in 7 games this season. That's the most in the league, and they've won 3 of those. The Bears winning ranks 12th of 15 in confidence. This feels like the perfect spot for weekly wildcards. Our list of 5 lesser expected touchdown scorers. I'm talking about the guys who aren't in the top few at their position in touchdown scoring, and you didn't draft them in round 1 of your fantasy league. Guys who have elevated end zone reaching odds this particular week. We are on an absolute roll here. Some of you added some exceptional nuggets to this last week, so please, by all means, add this week too. The format is super easy. Ready? Just one sentence to justify your reasoning. Here are mine. Number 1, Kenneth Walker against the Rams, who would be reaching the end zone for just the 3rd time over the past 5 games. Number 2, Chris Olave, intermediate passes against the Panthers. He also leads the team with 387 receiving yards. Number 3, Chase Brown against the Raiders, who has an advantage behind a line that has exceeded run blocking expectations this season. Number 4, Nick Chubb. I know he's playing the Chargers, I get it, but their injury report is no joke. And if you add his rushing and receiving probabilities together, you get high odds of reaching the end zone. And number 5, Cade Otton. You have to wait for Monday and also for the end of the show for all the stats on why. There are a number of guys, 3 running backs in fact, in this next one with elevated touchdown odds, but they don't qualify as underrated. So let's get out to Lambeau, where the visiting Lions are 3.5-point road favorites. Jared Goff has the second highest EPA per dropback with play action this season. It's 0.4 and only behind Josh Allen. And the Packers have allowed the 6th highest success rate against play action passes this season. We've seen a decrease in Sam Laporta's receptions, but his impact is helping the run game, which in turn helps bolster play action. The Lions have averaged 5.8 yards per carry on design runs when Laporta is on the field, and 4.2 yards per carry when he is off the field. The Packers have scored 24 more points in 6 straight games and in 7 of 8 this season. With questions about Jordan Love's status for this game, I figure it is best to highlight that Josh Jacobs is leading the NFL with 528 rushing yards after contact. He has a 3.6 yard average per carry, which is up almost a full yard from his 2.7 yard per carry average last season as a Raider. Bottom line, right now I'm modeling with Jordan Love playing, but at only about 70% health. That results in a 25-24 Lions win, in part because in addition to what I said about Sam Laporta helping in the run game, their strategy also helps on passing downs. And the Packers defense has allowed the 3rd highest completion percentage and the 5th most yards per attempt when defending pass plays by offenses in 12 personnel, so 2 tight end sets. This one ranks 13 of 15 in confidence though. The Minnesota Vikings host the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday Night Football when Joe Flacco and company try to upset the 5-point home favorite Sam Darnold-led squad. Colts receiver Josh Downs has been targeted on 32.9% of his routes this season. That's the 2nd highest target rate in the NFL. And he's been much more efficient with Joe Flacco at quarterback this season. Extra weekly wildcard, anyone? Justin Jefferson has earned 4 yards per route against single high safeties this season, the 2nd most in the NFL. NFL. The Colts use this look at the 11th highest rate and allow the 6th highest completion percentage over expected in such coverage. The Colts have also allowed 13.2 yards per reception to the wide receiver position this season, and JJ leads the NFL with 92.3 receiving yards per game. Bottom line, Sam Darnold has been killing it from a clean pocket this season, with the second highest passer rating. And even though the Vikings lost their extremely talented left tackle Christian Darrisaw to injury last week, they did get Cam Robinson from the Jaguars to help offset that loss. It also helps that the Colts have the 13th lowest pressure rate this season. The Vikings' only 2 losses have come in games when Darnold saw a pressure rate of at least 34%. Minnesota wins 25-19, and that 6 points is kind of strange because it keeps the Colts' streak of being the first team in NFL history to have each of their first 8 and what would be 9 games decided by 6 points or fewer. This game ranks 8th of 15 in confidence. And last but not least, on Monday night, the Bucs travel to Arrowhead for a date with the only remaining undefeated team, the Chiefs, who are 9-point home favorites. Cade Otton has 36 receptions through 8 games, which is the most by a Bucs tight end since Jerry Bell in 1985. The Chiefs are allowing an NFL worst, or high, 7 receptions per game and almost 81 receiving yards per game to tight ends, along with 3 tight ends having 90 or more receiving yards in a game against them so far this season. The Chiefs had the 5th highest rushing success rate against stacked boxes this season, and the Bucs have stacked the box, so 8 or more defenders in the box, at the highest rate in the league. Kareem Hunt has been successful on 6 of his 10 rushes against stacked boxes this season, and that 60% ranks 3rd among running backs. The bottom line here is a squaring off of streaks. The Chiefs defense has allowed 25 or fewer points in 16 straight games, including the playoffs, but Tampa Bay has scored more than 25 points in 6 of their 8 games this season, which leads the NFL. However, too many injuries on the Bucs offense means Kansas City continues their streak. Chiefs win 28-20, and this one ranks 7th in confidence. Let's round the show out with our menu of bland and spicy ingredients for you to make your own dish with the level of spice you want. A reminder here, bland ingredients are those chalky ones that occur in more than 55% of my overall simulations. Spicy refers to things that happen in only 48% of my outcomes, but their variance levels suggest that they are smart upside picks. I would say pairing 2 blands with a spicy makes for my favorite recipes. Let's start with the chalky ingredients. Number 1, DeAndre Swift to rush for at least 66 yards. Swift has 100 or more scrimmage yards and 1 or more touchdowns in each of his last 4 games, but mostly he's the key that helps unlock Caleb Williams. Number 2, Courtland Sutton to have at least 52 receiving yards against the Ravens. Remember, Baltimore's split is generous to the pass, mean to the run, and Sutton and Bo Nix seem to be on the same page. And number 3, Bijan Robinson to earn at least 23 receiving yards. The Cowboys have not been effective tacklers, giving up top rates of yaka and yako, meaning yards after the catch, yards after contact. In this case, yards after the catch are the ones that matter. And for the spice, number 1, Next Gen Stats shows that Tucker Kraft has a 145.5 passer rating when targeted. That is the highest among any player with at least 20 targets. This is spicy because at this moment I am unsure who is starting at quarterback for the Packers, but the variance and the fact that it happens in 48% of simulations for either quarterback is very, very good spicy. Number 2, Alexander Mattison to rush for at least 51 yards. The Bengals defense ranks 30th in rushing yards over expected allowed on 1st and 2nd down. And number 3, Malik Neighbors to catch at least 7 passes against the Commanders, which is actually under his 7.7 reception per game average. A newsletter sign up is in the works and will be on my socials this week. The newsletter will probably come out in about 1 or 2 weeks. Please send in your superlatives, and if you want to send me some facts to add to the show, I would love to see them. I will see you back here for lots of fun in week 10. All of my numbers are up for you to use as you wish as of Wednesday, October 30th. And remember, they update daily with the injury reports and news, so keep checking back. Thank you so much for hanging out. I love our show and I love making it better every single week. If you like it, please pass it along so we can continue to grow.